You ever have one of those moments, that sudden flash of anger when someone cuts you off in traffic, or that wave of frustration when a friend is late again? It seriously feels like they have a remote control for our emotions. Well, today, we're going to figure out why that is, and I'm going to show you a simple little shift in perspective that can hand that control right back to you.
It's a pretty wild question when you stop and think about it, right? Somebody's late, they interrupt you, they leave dishes in the sink, and bam, your entire mood just gets completely derailed. How is it that their actions seem to have a direct line to our emotional control panel?
Well, our first instinct, the most natural one, is what we can call the blame reflex. It's this automatic response, a story we tell ourselves almost instantly. And you know what? It's a super familiar feeling.
So here's how that story usually plays out in our heads. They did a thing, and because they did that thing, we get upset. It feels like simple math, right? Their action is the cause, our feeling is the effect. But what if that whole equation is missing a key variable? What if there's a hidden step in that process we're completely overlooking? This is where we can flip the script entirely and find that hidden step. And it all comes down to asking ourselves one very powerful, very specific question. This question comes from Marshall B. Rosenberg, and it is a game changer. He suggests that when you're upset, you should ask yourself, what is this person doing that is a trigger for me to judge them? I mean, just listen to that phrasing. It suggests their action isn't the cause of our feeling, but just a trigger for something that's already happening inside of us. Okay, so let's get super clear on what we mean by trigger here. A trigger is just the external action, the person being late, the comment they made, that flips the switch and activates an internal judgment that we're already carrying around. And this right here is the core idea. Our anger, our frustration, it's not actually coming from what they did, it's coming from our judgment about what they did. Suddenly, the power isn't in their action, it's in our interpretation. So how in the world do we actually do this in the heat of the moment? How do we untangle their action from our judgment? Well, it means we have to become a bit of an inner detective, to start looking for clues inside our own minds. And it really breaks down into 3 simple steps. First, just notice the feeling, okay? I'm upset. That's it. Second, identify the specific action that was the trigger. Not the story about it, like they were being disrespectful, but the fact. They looked at their phone while I was talking. And third, this is the key, pinpoint your own internal judgment. What story did that action trigger? Maybe it's they think I'm boring, or they don't value what I have to say. Let's look at this side by side, because this is where it really clicks. On one side, you've got the blame reflex. They are so inconsiderate for being late. That's an attack on them. But on the other side, you have self-awareness. When they were late, it triggered a judgment in me that I'm not being respected. Whoa. See the difference? The focus shifts completely from attacking them to understanding yourself. And this isn't just some mental gymnastics. This internal shift has a really powerful outcome in the real world. It leads to what we can call the empathy shift. The very moment you can separate that trigger from your judgment, you step off the battlefield of blame and onto a path of self-awareness. You're literally taking your emotional power back. And once you're on that path, something amazing starts to happen. When you understand your own inner world, your own judgments, your own needs, it becomes so much easier to approach the other person with curiosity instead of just accusing them. And that is the doorway to empathy and, honestly, to healing those fights that just seem to happen over and over again. So what's the payoff for doing this? It's huge. You're going to feel less anger because you're not just handing over your emotional remote control anymore. You'll get a way deeper understanding of what's truly important to you, which leads to so much more emotional freedom. And maybe most importantly, you can finally start having conversations that actually solve problems because you're talking about your experience, not just attacking their character. So what can you do with this idea right now? Let's make it super simple and something you can actually use. It's honestly this simple. The very next time you feel that heat of frustration or anger start to rise, don't react. Just pause for 1 second and ask yourself that question. What did they just do that is a trigger for me to judge them? That little pause, it's a revolutionary act. It interrupts that automatic blame reflex and starts the journey back to yourself, back to connection. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. The next time you get triggered, what judgment will you notice first?